Слушай, а человек, который будет лекцию вещать, он будет сидеть?
Я подозреваю, он будет за трибунки стоять.
Трибунки я не вижу.
Ну вот, который сидеть ты называешь, ну типа стол. Стол и стул. Мы
Ну,
петличку
тогда...
можем туда положить просто.
Я думаю, эти лучше вообще колонки.
А что, если мы можем на стол перед ним положить? Зачем нам на петлю-то пришли?
Works. It works now. Misha, it worked. It works perfect. Don't touch.
So I would like to first start off by thanking the organizers for kind of giving me some dubious honor to give this talk. And the reason why it's more dubious is that in a talk like this is to give it is a big challenge, because basically I need to tell something which maybe potentially could be understandable for our guests, but also perhaps will not put the rest of the conference deep asleep in about half an hour. So I thought long and hard about what I should do, and so here is my plan today. So I'd like to start out talking very broadly, talk about the transformative impact that science can have on society, and I will specifically focus on one example. This is the case of laser science. I will then introduce the field of this conference, and this is the new science of quantum information. What is it about, where it can lead to, and then make a little detour by talking about what I call a lasting Russian influence. So I will give an example of one specific person whose research really shaped this area many years ago, but still continues to shape it even to this day. Towards the end, I'd like to illustrate both challenges and opportunities which we are faced to deal with, I mean scientific challenges and opportunities, and I will do that by basically talking about some very recent work which perhaps would be of interest to the scientists in the audience. So in particular, I will talk about our work on creating a long-lived on a human scale, like a second or longer, quantum memory in room temperature solid. This is something which is actually some time ago, like a few years ago, was thought to be totally impossible, yet now we are making progress towards this in the lab. And I will also then talk about new applications of the techniques which we are developing to quantum sensors. Now, we are in business of doing basic science research, and fundamentally, we are motivated by the quest to understand the world. This quest is without a doubt a very long-term undertaking, but it can produce some remarkable results. These results are often transformative as opposed to incremental changes in technology, and these changes are the changes which define the modern society. I'd like to illustrate this very general statement by focusing on one specific example, and this is the example of the laser. So laser is a device which, for example, powers this laser pointer. That's the laser is inside this laser pointer. This laser is a device which was invented in the 1960s in both USSR and in the US. And people very quickly recognized that it was really truly amazing discovery. And in fact, a Nobel Prize was given around the time to Basov and Pounds for the invention of the laser. Yet, at around the time when the laser was invented, surprisingly, from today's point of view, it was thought to be a totally useless science toy. So this is something that scientists would kind of play with and do some experiments. So actually, in the US, the phrase was coined at the time that laser is a solution looking for application or for a problem. So basically meaning that there is no real need for the laser in any kind of technology. Now, when one does a Google search for this phrase, a solution looking for a problem, one immediately gets kind of a few dozens of posters. Some of these posters was created by funding agencies, but they immediately show the examples of how this fundamental work resulted in a host of technologies which are present essentially in every corner of our everyday life. The devices, many devices which we are so used to, starting from airplanes, kind of modern big airplanes, to computers, and so on, would not be the same now without a laser. One recent example that I would like to discuss specifically is the example of so-called information or internet revolution. This revolution is enabled in part by broadband, very fast data transmission, which can now happen in a reliable way across the continent. And this data transmission is enabled by fiber optical communication. So these are basically a very thin rods of glass which can carry the light signals, and they can carry them, for example, even on the bottom of the ocean. Laser is a key component of this system. So these lasers provide the signals which then propagate over the fibers and carry the information. Now this is something that you might not have known, but there is no doubt that you know about the impact that this kind of broadband communication had on changes in our society over the past decade. These changes created whole new segments of the economy. They changed the everyday life of many people, perhaps the majority of people on the world. They also result in changes in political landscape. They change the way how society functions. So this is a man whom you might not have seen previously, but you have probably seen his signature. So this is Larry Summers, who was actually an accomplished economist, and he served in two of the American administrations, both in Clinton and Obama administration. So during the Clinton administration, he was a secretary of U.S. Treasury, and as a result, he actually introduced a new, I think, new set of new design of the dollar bills. As a result, his signature appears. You can see. So here, it appears essentially on majority of the dollar bills in the circulation these days. He was also a president of the Harvard University, so he is, in fact, was the person who actually recruited me to Harvard, me and Eugene to Harvard in the first place. But once again, he started out as actually as a brilliant economist, and in his PhD thesis, he did some research which was focused on the value of government investment. So he studied which areas of economy or public infrastructure should the government invest. So, to his own surprise, he came up with the conclusion that the most return that we can obtain over long term comes from the investment into basic research. And basically, this was a singularity in his kind of graph, all of the other investments in infrastructure, investments in technology, investments in security, they were at least factor of 3 below this single category, which is investment in a basic research. And, he's a clever guy. Okay, so I hope I made my point. So this investment in basic research is important and it really pays off. So now turning to the subject of this conference, what is it about? Where does it come from? Where are these ideas of quantum science and technology originate from? The first statement that I'd like to make is that fundamentally the information, its acquisition, storage, transmission, and processing is fundamentally physics. All of these things involve physical devices, physical measurements, and physical processing. Now you heard already the talk given by Tamasa this morning that it is clear that pretty soon the elements of the conventional processors will become comparable to the sizes which are essentially dictated by the quantum mechanics. Now, for a while, it has been thought that this will present a major limitation to the increasing power of modern computers. And actually, this will really cause quite a jitter in many kind of segments of this part of the economy. But then a few smart people thought about that and they realized that in fact the situation is the opposite. In fact, if one takes advantage of the quantum mechanical processes, if one really controls quantum mechanical systems properly, it turns out that tremendous speed up may be possible by using this quantum. So the computers might be actually a lot better and not worse when this quantum mechanical effects are considered. Now, the design and implementation and realization of quantum computer is probably many years away. However, as a result of the research over the past decade or so, it is very clear that these quantum techniques, which are being developed, for example, to build quantum computers, will have a very wide range of applications, both in science and in technology. And just to kind of give you a sense about what this is all about, I'd like to think about sort of, if you want, an ultimately small processor, which of course should be kind of comparable in size to atoms. So this is a little overview of the kind of physics which goes into that. So basically, all of the objects around us consist of atoms, and the atom itself consists of the core, which is called nucleus, and then an electron, which basically zips around this nucleus. So both of these particles have multiple degrees of freedom, and in fact, you can use them to encode quite a bit of information inside both the electron and the nucleus. Just one specific example of the kind of information you might encode and process in this kind of systems comes from the analogy with just a classical hard drive. So most of the computers have a hard disk which is magnetic. So what you do essentially is you encode the information there by just changing the radiation of little magnets, and then these little magnets basically store the information, and then you can read out this information by using a magnetic head. So in principle, you might wonder if you can reduce the size of this magnet to a level where each magnet will consist from just one single atom, maybe one single electron. And you can think about storing the information, zeros and ones, in this kind of tiny atomic particles, subatomic particles. So this all, in principle, is possible. However, fundamentally, these particles are quantum objects. They do not obey the laws of classical mechanics. One can then make use of these quantum properties to encode not just classical bits of information, but something which is called a quantum bit of information. For example, both electron and the nuclei of most atoms have tiny magnetic moment which is called spin. So the spin can be visualized as a kind of spinning top, which basically create a kind of little current, which in turn makes this particle to behave like a little magnet. For example, if you place these particles now in external magnetic field, they can be oriented, either along the field or opposite to the field. So this orientation can be used to encode one classical bit of information. However, in quantum mechanics, it is possible to create a very weird state called quantum superposition state, in which this tiny particle can be in both states at once. In other words, the magnet can be oriented in a so-called superposition state of being up and down. So this is not possible in classical theory. It's only possible in quantum theory. And for this reason, this particle can be used to encode this quantum bit or qubit of information. Once again, quantum superposition is the key to understanding the kind of opportunities and challenges which we have to deal with in the field of quantum information science. And I was trying to explain it to non-specialists, and after a long conversation, I was told that I should give an anecdote as an example. So it's actually an old Soviet anecdote. So, and the anecdote goes like this. So, about 50 years ago, Nikita Khrushchev was a prime minister of the Soviet government, and I guess he went to the United States and he made a very kind of colorful impression there. So I think, for example, of the story also manifests itself in some other totally different dimension, which can be used as more practical. So, and all over quantum world is essentially a challenge of combining both isolation and control over this so-called quantum bits, over the quantum mechanical part. Now, okay, so I have given it. It turns out that in order to do that, two branches of physics play a critical role, which are basically related to introduce. The resonance method is also something which you by now know in sort of maybe not everyday life, but it's quite common. So this is in any case, and this man was a real true pioneer in the laser era. When I was preparing the talk, and the reason I decided to talk about it is that I caught myself by sitting in the talks given by some young people, and some talks didn't mention the word laser, but essentially about, I'd say 80 to 90% of the talks at this conference made use of the pioneering ideas which were put forward by Professor Mikhail. Here is just a few examples of the research directions which he essentially started out. So this actually is a kind of very nice picture that I found on the internet. So this is one that Mikhail as a young student here in Charlestown, who already at the time was a accomplished researcher and a winner of Nobel Prize. So he was really a truly remarkable man. He was extremely inventive. He understood things very deeply, and he also cared about applications. So I'm told that when he was entering the his studies at the university, and he actually was a student in Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology. So he had to take entrance exams, and he came from a little village, so his exams were not actually kind of very good. But then there was an interview during which he spoke with, with some professors, and everyone was completely, totally just impressed to them. And the reason turned out to be is that when he was a high school student, he actually invented a new type of plow to basically, plow the fields, which basically kind of, transformed this, collective farm where he worked, so to increase the productivity by a factor of 2. And this plow is not exactly a high-tech instrument, so this has been developed over the last many centuries. So it's kind of amazing that a young person can just come up and just do this kind of stuff. So there are 3 specific areas where the topic has contributed, which really have direct impact on at least my everyday life. Some techniques which we are using in our work all the time. This one is the development of laser cooling of atoms, so that's a method to really chilling atoms to very, very low temperatures. Another one is the methods of atom optics using light fields to manipulate atoms. And the third is the single atom detection, the ability to really detect the signals from the single atom. His legacy is enormous. So he published over 850 research papers, about 16 books. For more than 15 years, he was a small-sided Russian scientist in all fields of science. But he was largely unknown, I guess, to the public, and it was only a few years ago when sort of his name surfaced in the press, and that occurred in 1997, when the Nobel Prize was awarded for invention of the cooling of atoms with light. So these Nobel Prize winners were all very respected, recognized scientists, but the list did not include Professor Mikhail. And at the time, I guess there was a lot of articles in Russian newspapers about how unfair it was, and how bad it is. But actually, no one really kind of cared to think about when he was recognized and how he was recognized here in Russia. And in fact, I'm not sure how well he was really recognized. In particular, he was never a member of Academy of Science. So actually, also another story that I remember is we once were at one of his laser physics conference, which is organized, and it was right after this Nobel Prize development happened, and we talked, I think maybe with Vlad Shalayev, if Vlad is still here, with Letov, and we asked him, how do you feel about that? He said, well, of course, I drank a bottle of cognac, but afterwards I just picked up the phone and called my good friends to congratulate them with the Nobel Prize. So he was really a remarkable man. So at the same time, kind of looking beyond these recognitions and the Nobel Prizes, his legacy really lives on. In particular, this ability to cool matter to near absolute zero and detect single atoms is central to this field of quantum technologies. So in particular, what is shown here is a crystal of maybe about 20 ions, which has been cooled near absolute zero, suspended in vacuum, and these individual dots are really individual atoms, which was detected by using laser light, by using the kind of techniques that Professor Mikhail has pioneered. The 2 people here are 2 of the pioneers in the field of quantum information processing using ultra-cold ions. This man above is actually, his name is Dave Wyman. He was also one of these people who many felt should have gotten this prize for the laser cooling. He actually was sort of a co-inventor of the laser cooling in the US around the same time as Litov's contribution. But I guess Dave, I think, has a very good chance for getting the Nobel Prize having a few years for this specific workshop. It's the history of rules justice. The second person is actually a collaborator of Day Wyman, Chris Monroe, who is here at the conference, who will actually give in a few minutes following my talk, he will give a review about the recent developments in this specific field. Okay, so these are the kind of ingredients which we need to do the quantum manipulation, to store states in single atoms, to read them out. So what would be the potential outcomes of this quantum revolution? So there are a few possibilities, there are a few things which we are thinking about. One of them is this ultra-fast computer. So it turns out by using the laws of quantum mechanics, certain computational tasks can be carried much faster than otherwise possible. Another one is quantum internet. So this is a communication task. So by encoding signals in single photons and quantum particles, it turns out that you can increase not the speed, but the security of the communications. It turns out that if you do things properly, you can build absolutely secure lines which you cannot, eavesdrop without violating the laws of physics. We've also heard about another research direction where the ideas of quantum information are now considered to design kind of custom-made quantum materials by understanding and modeling them for different kinds of systems and essentially trying to build the quantum matter kind of atom by atom redesign problem. So these other two areas are quantum sensors, I already mentioned, so it turns out that quantum systems can be extremely good sensors. And the last area is the area of atomic clock, which is something which I'll briefly talk about. So these areas differ very much. All of these research directions involve a sort of use similar ingredients. They differ very much in both complexity and input. So for example, if one can really make computers which will be orders of magnitude actually exponentially faster, which can solve some problems which classical computers will probably not be able ever to solve efficiently, this would of course have a huge impact. At the same time, this is of course the most challenging task. So we don't know yet if the quantum computer can be built and how. At the same time, some of these areas are already turning into the applications, and these, even the so-called small-scale applications, already have an impact in society. For example, world's best clocks now use quantum effects, and in fact, they use quantum logic to provide the most precise reference of frequency in time. These clocks are in turn the key to the modern navigation systems. For example, the way how the local positioning systems such as GPS or MANAS work is by essentially receiving synchronized signals from kind of multiple satellites, and by just making use of the fact that the speed of light is known, by comparing the signals, you can determine your position with very, very high accuracy. Of course, in order to provide these signals, all of these satellites must have a clock, a very precise clock, such that they can send signals in sync. So this is already a part of everyday life. But with the developments which are currently underway in this field, it might be possible very soon to improve the accuracy of the clocks by something like 2 to 3 orders of magnitude, and this might also change our life in a way which is very hard to imagine. So it might enable, for example, for autonomous transportation, so basically the cars which can operate without drivers at the steering wheel. Okay, so this is already gives you a little bit of a sense that these things can kind of come close to reality. And this another kind of statement which I'd like to make, which is related to the research which we are doing, but it's also related to the more global scale tackle the challenging problem, this will not operate. But the question which I would like to ask is why is it so difficult to build, for example, a full-blown quantum machine, big-scale quantum computer? Why is it? Many of us, working on this, very intensely. In fact, some of the best scientists of the world are tackling this problem of building a quantum computer, and still it remains a difficult goal. There are two reasons why, in my view, this is difficult. So, one is what I would call a challenge of the simultaneous isolation and control of complex quantum systems. So, basically, things around us are in principle quantum mechanical, yet they behave like classical objects. So, how to make this kind of larger scale system behave quantum mechanical? The second question is in a very different direction. So, what you hope you'll get towards the end of my talk and probably in the next couple talks is that already by now there are some small scale quantum processors which are operating in the laboratory, and they are pretty good. What can we do with them? Is there some useful things, is there some useful applications where even this kind of small scale quantum systems can be used? So the answer is of course yes, as I already showed you an example of atomic clock, but atomic clock is a kind of an old idea. It actually precedes this quantum technology idea. So it just is not being improved with quantum. So let me just focus on this first subject, and I must say, just to kind of illustrate this a little bit further. So basically, in around 1930s, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, Erwin Schrödinger, started thinking about this kind of superpositions, quantum superpositions, and how they could apply to the large-scale object, and he came with this very famous example of the Schrödinger cat. So basically all cats in the real life are either there or alive. But it is in principle possible in quantum theory to make a state where the cat will be both alive and dead. So it's a very weird state, but it's not practically by the laws of quantum theory. Now the problem is that in practice, if you of course kind of make a measurement, you can't really find that the cat is both alive and dead. So it will always be either alive or dead. Now, this is kind of the idea, the curiosity, that is if you make a measurement yourself, or if something else, like your environment makes a measurement, you should kill this kind of Schrödinger. Now, it turns out that a quantum computer is something which is kind of akin to this Schrödinger. So, its power, and for example, very kind of dramatic increasing parallelism, comes from the ability to create this kind of very complex superposition states. So, if you have this phenomena, like occasional measurements of some random particle hitting that, that's why you destroy it. So that's why in order to build a quantum computer, in general, what you have to do is to isolate the system from everything. You have to cool it down to very, very low temperature. So you have to make all of this kind of levels of precaution to stop this kind of unfortunate process of killing cats and quantum calculations. So this is well understood in the community, and this really motivates a search for some kind of new quantum system, for new systems which somehow could behave as a perfect theory. So the nice thing about science is that if you have some very challenging problem, this is when science becomes interesting. So in fact, there are remarkable efforts ranging from theory to experiment to material science to computer science that are trying to address this problem. Because these two examples, recent examples, kind of advancing this field. One is the example of so-called topological quantum disk. The idea here is that we use basically topology to encode the information. And so unless you change the topology of the system, the quantum information cannot be lost. Now if you step back for a moment and think about that, you immediately realize that this is really crazy stuff. The reason why it's crazy is because you want to make a computer out of the state of the matter, which has never been observed. No one observed this kind of topological states, which are required to be in a quantum computer. At the same time, this is perhaps the most intriguing intellectual advance in the field. And the question now is, can we think of some way how these things can be actually created in the lab? And if they are created, can be used? The other example, which I'd like to actually focus on, is an example of the nitrogen vacancy impurities in diamond. This is the direction in which material science and optical techniques are converging to actually create stable quantum systems which are can display quantum properties and have very long quantum behavior in the ambient conditions in room temperature diamonds. So interestingly, both of these directions have been pioneered by the Russian-speaking people, and both here at the conference. So Alexei Kitaev was the one who actually pioneered the development of topological quantum bits. And despite of the statements here that this is the crazy stuff, these ideas is so appealing that actually a private company, Microsoft, actually takes large investment to try to kind of see if observation of the states are possible. So the second person here is Fyodor Zhelezko. Both of them actually gave talks already. He's a pioneer in this diamond quantum information research. He's actually a Belarusian. So I'd like to talk a little bit about our own work in just this last 5 minutes on the subject. And one of the recent developments in our laboratory was the development of a very stable quantum memory in room temperature solid. So the idea essentially is to start with this very clean diamond sample, create some impurity in there, and then basically shine some laser light in a very special way on this impurity in order to extend the time, the room temperature, diamond solid state crystal to the scale which is kind of almost human. You can look at this with your human eyes. So these all developments are based on the advances in modern materials. In particular, diamond is known to be a unique material for its hardness, dynamic, thermal conductivity. It turns out that these properties make it quite unique for quantum applications. Most remarkably, it is not possible to grow diamonds from the gas, from methane, using, for example, chemical vapor deposition. And in the growth process, one can really control its properties, control its composition, its purity, one can even shape the diamond structure the way you want. So what we do in our work is that we make use of one impurity inside diamond crystal, which behaves like an artificial atom, like a single artificial atom. This impurity is the so-called nitrogen vacancy impurity. It consists of nitrogen atom which substitutes the carbon atom in diamond lattice and nearby vacancy. And basically, this becomes like a nature-own reptile. So it's just a single atom embedded in the diamond crystal. It has suitable optical properties. For example, by using laser microscopy, one can isolate single atoms. So this is a microscope image where this little dots are single nitrogen vacancy center. It also has this magnetic spin degree of freedom, which I already mentioned. It in fact has a zero electronic, it's a spin triplet around, so it can be rotated with microscopes. Most importantly, these nitrogen vacancy centers can be created in pure diamond by implanting nitrogen ion and then basically annealing the sample to create stable centers which can exist forever. So the idea of making a memory is very simple. You want to start with the diamond lattice, which is extremely pure, which has no defects, and moreover, it should be made from just one of the two carbon isotopes. In fact, carbon-12 isotope is no net nuclear spin, so it basically doesn't have any magnetic properties. But carbon-13 isotope has a spin, so it can be used as a cube. And the approach then is basically to remove all but few carbon-13 nuclei during diamond flow, and then use this impurity, this artificial NV center, to prepare, measure, and manipulate a single nuclear spin, which is actually few nanometers away from the nitrogen lattice in purity. So here how it's done in practice, you just basically shine a laser light and massage the kind of this impurity, and this impurity is used to basically sense the single carbon atom. And so here is a time trace, showing the fluorescence coming from the Lee center, which reflects somehow these properties of the single nucleus. So what we see here is a telegraph signal, which corresponds to something which is called quantum jumps. So quantum jumps are processes in which quantum system changes its state by just a discrete amount. And what one observes here is that basically this quantum system can stay in one state for a very long time, for the state which is on the order of a minute. So this is remarkable because we are dealing now with a really low temperature system, which is not isolated. It exists in a very complex environment. Yet it clearly displaces quantum behavior with quantized jumps and clearly has a long lifetime. One can also ask how long the spin memory lasts, quantum memory lasts in this kind of situation. And it turns out that these quantum superpositions in this case do not live minutes, but they can live for about a second. So this is a really long time for a quantum, solid-state quantum system under any conditions. But this now works better in temperature solid. So here's some perspective. Current efforts are now headed towards scaling up. For example, Flodder talked here about coupling with nitrogen together. We are also trying to use this memory to build quantum internet by mapping information between spins and the photons to carry. And we are also developing a wide range of kind of quantum wires to couple this memory to other kinds of systems. So, just two more slides about the challenge of useful application. And I would like to actually come back to the talk here, since I sort of started with my talk. And actually, after this conversation we had about the Nobel Prize, he told me something else. He said, it's laser cooling, I'm not really sad, but there is something new that I'm working on, which, will be for sure a Nobel Prize. So, this new idea that they've developed at the end of 90s was the idea to try to basically use atoms, single atoms, for nanoscale imaging. So this is the direction in which, for example, with research in the Lattice Center might potentially yield a new application in the not so far distant future. So in particular, it turns out that we can use a nitrogen lattice center as a tiny magnetic sensor, where basically it can measure the field from the surrounding environment just through the Zeeman effect. So basically what happens is that the magnetic field basically changes the rate of the quantum evolution of the nitrogen lattice center. And this is remarkable because this sensor is very small, so it can be brought in direct proximity to very small objects like single molecules. And this basically holds promise to extend the magnetic resonance imaging techniques truly to nanoscale. So I think I don't want to kind of spend too much time here, but this direction really opens up completely new avenue. Provides a new tool for fields about which I really didn't know much about a few years ago, such as for nanobiology or medicine. So we're thinking about now ideas for magnetic sensing living cells. We're also thinking about how to use this kind of technique to understand how the brain works. And this is the picture of the living cell with nanodiamonds in there, which contains single nitrogen lattices, and we'll hear more about it in the talk which will follow. Okay, I think I've used my time, so I don't want to go for this interesting details. So in summary, I hope I can use you that some of these developments which take place in basic science, in the field of quantum science in particular, have lasting, transformative impact. So the Russian school made a lot of contributions to this, way beyond the headlines and Nobel enterprises. And this field of quantum science and technology will likely have wide-ranging transformative applications, and some applications may perhaps be.
Amazing talk. Are there any questions? Maybe it's good because we are a bit out of time. So let's thank Misha again. The second speaker is Hong Kong Park.